It is estimated that over 1 million people suffer from an eating disorder in the UK. Those most at risk are between 10 and 19 years of age.
Hiya, I'm Lindsay. I'm here with Beats to talk to some Year 9 students.
Okay, Lindsay, I'll just sign
Lindsay acts as a young ambassador for BEAT, the Eating Disorders Campaigning Organisation. Constance kept a diary, describing her thoughts and fears as she fought her private battle against a disease that almost killed her. And Rob, whose unique testimony gives us some insight into the mind of a male anorexic. They don't want anorexia to remain hidden away. They want the facts to be known, because if spotted early enough with the right kind of help, this frightening illness can be defeated.
I enjoy doing most sports here, in particular hockey, and I used to do a lot of running as well. And it was quite a big change because I never thought I was particularly any good, and I didn't have the opportunity to do much sport at my old school, so it was a real change for me coming to a school where I could do sport.
She was always really hard working at school. I've never, ever, ever had to say to her, have you done your homework yet? She would always do it. She is a very easy child. And all the time that I was thinking, ooh, Constance is no trouble, actually it was masking a whole load of things going on underneath.
I would say running was a big trigger for me, and probably the main cause for my eating disorder. There's quite a fine line between an enjoyment and doing it because you feel you have to, because there's a voice or anorexia makes you have to go out. And I think it comes in quite slowly, but it is noticeable. And then when the percentage for your enjoyment reduces, then that's when I think there starts to be an issue, because you're not doing it for yourself anymore. You're not doing it to keep fit. You're now exercising because you feel you have to, and the anorexia is making you exercise.
The changes happened from being this very chatty child that would come in and be full of everything that was going on, to suddenly saying, I don't want to talk about it, So I'd pick her up from school and say, how's the day been? Oh, I don't want to talk about it. And that shut-off was very, very strange and very dramatic. But again, because you think, she's a teenager, I won't pry. I think teenagers do need their privacy. But it really was like she was clamming up completely.
You're constantly tired, and because I was boarding, when Mum would see me on the weekend, I would just be tired and I wouldn't be able to get up from the sofa, and she just thought, it's a teenager, she's had a long week, she's just really tired. But obviously that was because I was starving myself during the week, so I had no energy. I would just hate going home on the weekend because I knew I'd have to eat, because I would eat so that my parents couldn't see what I was doing during the week. You end up constantly lying to your family and friends, which is so hard, because in a way you know that you're lying, you know that you've lied about what you've eaten, and you know that you've lied about how far you've been running. But it's an impulse that you do because you don't want people outside to come in and understand your illness. So you're trying to protect yourself in a way, because the anorexia becomes your friend. And that also gets twisted in the way that, because people around you then say they're the ones who are deceiving you, and they're the ones who are trying to make you fat, and they're the ones who put you in hospital.
Anorexia is often misdiagnosed. When Constance was first referred to a consultant, she was diagnosed with chronic fatigue. She was told that she was to be taken off games.
For Constance, who was the only person that knew what was really going on, that accelerated her into the anorexia, because if she couldn't lose the weight by the excessive exercising, then she could only do it by further food restriction. And the school, in able to help her cope with the fatigue so that she could just concentrate on her lessons, was sending meals down to the house for her, which we all thought was a brilliant idea. But of course, we didn't realise Constance was just chucking all the food away. So she was starving herself completely, and very successfully.
Anorexia is a very secretive illness, and it was my friends who actually picked up on it first, because they were the ones who were with me during the week. So they noticed the amount I was exercising and also how little I was eating. They were worried about my destructive habits that they could see, and I think it was hard for them to know what to do with that, because they didn't want to betray my trust as friends, because then that would put our relationship or our friendship in a different aspect. But they had to break that trust in order for me to get help.
The person who first spotted the telltale signs of anorexia was her school nurse.
Her room was very precise, everything was very ordered. She had lists of all the exercise she was doing and how many miles she was running.
She could see my room was very tidy, and that's a classic sign of perfectionism that comes with it, because you want to be the best, and being the best anorexic was another thing that you wanted to achieve.
I was contacted by the medical centre, by the senior nurse, to say there was an issue with one of the pupils. She kept that confident in terms of who the pupil was, but she talked to me about how she and the medical team wanted to deal with it. From my point of view, it was relatively straightforward because I had the confidence in my team. I knew I'd be kept informed as I needed to be, but also wouldn't be part of breaking of confidence. And often, as a head teacher, you have to understand that you can't know all the details or the individuals, and you do have to trust your team.
It's just sore in the throat.
Okay, shall I have a little look in your throat?
Sure. Okay.
Our main role is listening and being able to be in a position where we know what other specialist services are around. So should the pupil then feel that they have a specific concern, that we would know who then to refer them on to.
I was taken to the school doctor where I was weighed and heighted, and that was when the direct question was asked, "Are you anorexic?" To which I replied, no, because there's a big denial process that goes on because you don't believe you've got a problem, because all your habits you feel are normal habits and normal things to do.
The school doctor was the one that hit the nail on the head. He knew that Constance was anorexic, which was a bit of a shock and didn't sort of make sense. Because if you backtrack, I'm at home, I'm the mother, and I'm seeing this child that's doing really, really well at school. She's very athletic, very fit. And also what you have to bear in mind is that when I picked Constance up from school on a Saturday afternoon, she would eat with us. So my first thought was, what is he on about?
I think my parents found it quite hard to especially understand what I was going through, because it is so isolating and you're very restricted in what you can say. And the anorexia means that you don't tell people what's going on and you don't share your feelings.
And eventually I managed to have a conversation with her. It was here in this room, to ask her to open up and, you can trust me, tell me what's going on. Doesn't matter what it is. And that's when she said to me, well, actually, and this is a bit of a praise-seed version, you can see how fat I am, Mum. I need to lose all this weight off my thighs. I was doing very well at running and doing all my exercise. But of course, since I've had to stop, then I can't do that anymore. I don't need to eat at school because I can stop doing that. That's not a problem. But I don't want to keep on eating now I come home at the weekends with you. Could you stop feeding me? And your heart just sinks because it's just that kadunk. You know what you're dealing with suddenly. It all slots into place.
I think schools face difficulties in how to approach anorexia. I think there's sort of two extremes. One is you just ignore it. It doesn't happen in my school. The other is you go so far in terms of education that you may actually highlight issues that others haven't thought about yet. So there's a balance to strike in terms of informing, but at the same time not frightening. And I think a school just has to be constantly aware of it and provide the right sort of training and support.
The school were fantastic. I went up to see Ian Power, the headmaster, with her house parent, burst into tears. And they said, we'll do whatever it takes. And I said, Constance wants to stay at school. And he was very clear, working with the outpatient team, that yes, she can stay in school, but she has to eat. If she doesn't eat, then she can't come into school. And that was a big motivator for Constance.
Anorexia is a very isolating illness, and I think people often miss the depression that comes with it and the really strong feeling that you just feel you're never going to get better. And things can deteriorate very rapidly with it, and especially with me, it all happened really quick within about 2 months of being diagnosed to going into an inpatient hospital.
At that time, they said it would be 5 weeks before we can get to see Constance. And I knew that Constance was deteriorating so fast that in my mind I thought she would probably be dead by then. That's how serious it was. And in actual fact, by being so persistent and making a nuisance of myself, we got a cancellation within 10 days. And then once we were in the system, we could start getting the specialist support that we needed.
Constance was admitted to an eating disorders unit for adolescents. She was there for 7 months.
I was very scared and very isolated because I wasn't sure how long I was going to be there. I didn't know if I was going to be there for 6 weeks or 2 years. I just didn't know. So as time progressed, it was, I think, realising that everything that I was missing at school, at home, that was a real motivation for me.
She kept a diary throughout her stay in hospital where she would write down her innermost thoughts.
I had a session with my key worker in the evening, and I shared some things which were really close to me. I just don't see the point of living anymore. I feel worthless. I'm not good at anything. I find it so hard to want to put anything inside me, like food and water, because I am no good. I don't deserve it. I'm nothing. So it is easier and better to have nothing inside me. My key worker asked me to think of 3 good things about me, but I can't think of any.
The whole process of recovery is such a slow one, and it's also about one tiny little step forwards and then they go back again. Another little step forward and then there's no progress and then they go back again.
In the really low moments, I wasn't giving myself enough food, so the decision was made to put a nasal gastric tube in me so that I was able to get enough food. And that was a really, really traumatic experience because you don't want it, and the rational side of you can see that this is not what you're meant to live like. You're not meant to be fed through a tube. But yet the anorexia doesn't want it, but realises that this is a way of being a good anorexic. So you've got always two minds about what's going on, and it's a constant battle between your two minds.
2 months passed in the unit. In the outside world, her classmates were starting the new autumn term. It was the worst time for the inpatients, knowing that their friends would be going back to school and getting on with their lives.
They often wrote to me and they sent me texts and they spoke to me on the phone, which was a really important part of my recovery, to know that they're still thinking of me, because I think you do worry about when you're in hospital for so long that people are going to forget about you, and that was useful to still have that contact with my friends. I got a text from one of my friends tonight and it said, "Babe, there's always a tunnel out, always. You've just got to wait until you find it, which will be very soon. Everything will seem better soon. Keep the faith, babe." I just found that so inspirational, and I was really proud to be friends with someone so supportive. And things like that give me glimmers of hope, which I really need right now.
The role of Constance's school was equally important in aiding her recovery.
The school put in place a system whereby we could send work to her from teaching staff. Work would be marked and returned to her. But there was a balance to strike between giving her enough work almost to make her feel that she was keeping up with it, balanced against not putting too much pressure on her, even down to reducing the number of GCSE subjects she was doing, which again wasn't an easy decision to make because she's a high-achieving girl. Not taking 10 GCSEs, taking 7 could have had a negative impact on her self-esteem and what she was trying to achieve.
The liaison between the school and the psychiatric unit began to pay dividends as Constance took her first steps towards recovery.
In the darkest moments, I didn't feel that I was going to get better, but as things started to improve, I felt like maybe this was the path that I had to take in order to discover the real me. And recovery, I think, is a lot about discovery and discovering who you really are, because ultimately being anorexic isn't a way of life, and that isn't who you are. I announced my discharge from hospital today, which was so exciting. I feel proud, and when people congratulated me, I was able to own the compliments instead of pretending that they weren't for me, which feels really important, and something that I think I can value for the rest of my life for freedom. You have to believe that you will get better, and eventually that moment when you believe that you can get better. It will come, and it's really, really important to hold on to that, because life without an eating disorder is so much better.